Okay, wow, exactly 7:30. Go us. Hey everyone. This is our first time trying this new sort of live streaming platform. So
Lots of opportunity for mistakes.
yeah, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully everybody can find it because I tried posting it last second and I'm hoping everyone can find it. But welcome. I'm going to take the first minute or so just to allow people to kind of come in. I know there's a little bit of a delay with live streaming. But what we're planning on doing is talking a little bit about the holidays, Christmas specifically for us, but
And
whatever holiday works for you.
what we've expected or experienced in the past.
Exactly. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about some exciting stuff coming up in the new year. A new little side project that we're starting for the podcast that we haven't officially announced yet.
So lots of surprises.
And I noticed that when we set up the cameras, it looks like we're on the wrong side because when I look at you, I'm looking away. So you can tell we're new to live streaming because we're switched. We should be on the other side of each other so that this makes sense. See, look at me. It doesn't make sense on the screen. So
Okay.
I apologize. I don't know how to change that. But yeah, so today we're just talking a little bit about the season that we just wrapped up with Embracing Autism. We also wanted to announce we hit a really big milestone. Do you know what that is?
I do, because you texted me earlier today.
What is it?
We hit 10,000 listeners.
10,000 listeners to the Embracing Autism podcast. If I had confetti here, I would just shoot it right now, but I don't have it yet.
Well, we have one of these.
Oh yeah, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. In all seriousness, though, that really helps us. That's how we get our sponsors, and that's what allows us to gift more children. So the more reviews we get, the better. It's just an easy, free way to support us. So we would super duper appreciate it.
I should probably turn it off.
Yeah, you can turn that off. He's still learning on how to be our producer. Yeah. But, it's a learning curve. So yeah, the podcast, the season that we just finished, I think we had a really fun time with that, Senses and Sensibilities.
Yep.
And I need to stop looking at him because it looks weird on the screen because we're flipped. But one of the things that we wanted to focus on in the upcoming season, which is called Hearth and Home, is we wanted to kind of go back to the roots of the family unit and kind of what impact does autism have at home and some skills and tools that we can kind of use to help out in that area. So that's one of the things that kind of inspired us to move forward for season 3?
Yep.
Oh, we gotta Kenyana. Oh, hi, Kenyana. She's usually in the parenting group.
Oh.
Thanks for joining.
So we noticed that in the first season, we kind of touched a little bit on the family, and same thing with the second season, but now we want to kind of direct that to the main focus because that is kind of the cornerstone for making everything work. So overall, it should be really exciting. We are launching that in the new year. So we're almost there. We're a couple of weeks out, and season 3 will start off.
Yes. And also, I wanted to announce during this live stream, if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them to us in the chat. We are going to be doing a sensory box giveaway. So for every question that you submit, it'll be one entry into this wheel spin that I'll do. And then we'll do that at the end. And then we'll just announce who the winner is. The winner will need to stay in the room though, stay on the chat so that I can communicate with you. Yeah. Yeah, because I had a problem with that last time. I wasn't able to find the person. So just stay here. Oh, hello, Kenyana. I see your message there. So yeah, just shoot us any questions and we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, again, our big thing was we finally hit 10,000 downloads, which is a huge milestone in the short amount of time that we've had this podcast. Just for like reference, typically a podcast will take at least like a year, year and a half, sometimes 2 years to hit that, and we hit that in like what, 6
Or so. I think we
months?
launched it in mid-June or so. So
Something like yeah, because it was on Autistic Pride Day. Yeah. So that is like a big achievement, and I really want to like shout out to our listeners because it just simply would not be possible without you. The
The
other
other
thing
thing
that I
I
wanted
wanted
to
to
kind of
kind of
announce here is we are going to be doing something new with the Embracing Autism podcast. So we are still continuing with the Embracing Autism podcast as is. Like I said, our next season is Hearth and Home. That's launching January 2022. But we will also be launching a companion podcast series. It's not explicitly podcast because it's going to have video as well. So this would be more of like a YouTube series, I guess.
right.
So for that one, it's going to be an interview style series, and I'm going to have some guests that I will be interviewing. Those will be, as of right now, they will be live. We'll see how they go. But right now it'll be like, I think we have it planned so that's like every third week of the month or so. But I will have a lot more information coming up on that soon.
And I don't think we've landed on a name for the companion podcast, have we?
It's called Embracing Autism IRL. IRL standing for in real life because it's about having conversations with like real people and how it impacts like the day-to-day life. We'll talk to like different therapists, parents, people who are like autistic adults, things like that. So it's going to be, I think, really exciting. Matt will not be in that one.
Probably
so,
for the best.
so you'll just have to listen to me interviewing people. Yeah, but I think it'll be really great. So now what I want to do is I will be kind of going in and out between questions. And then I will also be chatting a little bit more about the podcast and Matt, whenever you want to chime in.
Sure. I mean, we could start with the first question. We just had one that kind of comes
so
through.
We have a question. Let's see what this question is. Okay, so this question is by Kenyana. You can read it if you'd like.
Okay. My kiddo's autism seems to be getting worse instead of better. I was told he'd be better as he got older, but it's the opposite. Why? So I guess that's kind of a big question. Is there anything in particular, any areas that he seems to be struggling more? Or and also, how old is your little kiddo?
I'm guessing because there's a picture. And the picture appears to be maybe like 4 or 5 or so. Okay. But I would say kind of like what he said, it depends what the areas that are getting worse are. Sometimes it tends to be that there are regressions when there are things that have changed in the environment. So usually what I do is I like to observe what's happening. Like for our kiddo is actually experiencing a regression right now in the last week or so. And her therapist and I have been trying to pin down what the reason behind that regression may be. And after a lot of kind of like back and forth and observation and just trying to see what is triggering the behaviors, we've kind of narrowed it down to that at school, they just changed the procedure so that now I pick up the kids right by their classroom door. Whereas before, because of COVID, it was in the hallway. So what that means is that now she is going to see her old classroom when we pick up her sister. And ever since she's been seeing her old classroom again, it's reminded her of her old routine. And she wants to get back to that, and it's triggering meltdowns. But it took a long time to kind of like figure that out. So what I would recommend is when you're looking at like the question here of my child's autism seems to be getting worse. Okay, so he's 8. So he's getting further and further behind. I'm assuming that means maybe like academically or behaviorally. I'm not exactly sure. But if there's anything that has changed in the environment or anything that's changed in his routine, that would be the first thing that I would look at. And you looked like you had something to
Well, I was
say.
going to say because for our oldest, we also think it was kind of her coming into her own age a little bit. So I think she kind of hit the terrible twos a little late. So it's kind of becoming a my object as far as like if she wants something, it's all about her versus kind of the sharing and getting along with others. So I think that's kind of mixed in with kind of her misbehaving as well, because that's been going on for last couple of months, few months or so. Um, but I'm not sure if since he's 8, if there's any like change in routine that might be causing just him to act out or any type of regression there.
Yeah, so we can't really give a direct answer because for us, it's always about observation, and that's how we usually get our answer, because our children's behavior tend to get worse in certain situations, and the reason behind that is not always the same. Sometimes it's a sensory reason, like we find out that there was a noise that was really bothering them. Sometimes it's like a routine. "Oh, see,
Okay.
look at this, he got a new teacher."
And
Yeah.
and we actually experienced that too, with our oldest one because she had spent a year with a couple teachers that she really liked, and then the transition period when she was forced into a new classroom just because she aged out, there was a learning curve of sorts about who this new teacher was, and even so, she still mentions the previous teacher whenever we ask her, "Oh, who's your teacher?" She'll list off all the teachers that she's had. So she is still aware of that teacher even though she's not currently in that class.
Yeah. And one of the things that our teachers have done, because she had that same issue with transitioning to a new teacher, I don't know if this is possible for you, but what they have done is her old teacher will still she's still in the same building, so she will sometimes come by and say hello to her, just like while she's waiting to go into class or anything like that, so that she can give her a little bit of transition for the day, if that makes sense, because she sees her old teacher before she goes to the new teacher. I know that's not always possible, but what you can sometimes do is maybe get like a picture. And then what you can do is incorporate it into like a social story. So that's what we did for her too, is we had this social story created, and we basically were like, you used to go to this room. Your teacher was this teacher. These were your classmates. And then you would switch the story to now you're going to this room. This is your new teacher. This is your new classmates. And then you can end it with something like, you can always say hello to your old teacher, but for now you have to stay with the new teacher. Okay, and I see that it says that his old teacher quit. So that one's harder, because of that, but you could still use a social story and just incorporate that into the social story. Obviously, you can't just say, "Your teacher quit," but
Right.
maybe say something like, "Mrs. Smith is no longer here," or like, "Miss," or maybe like moved away, or just something to the effect of she's no longer there in a way that your child would understand.
And another thing that I've done, with kind of the new teacher that our daughter has this year is I'll try and talk up the new teacher. So if I'll ask questions about her, ask my daughter, "Oh, is she funny? Is she silly? Is she nice?" So I get her to try and think of the positive qualities of that teacher. So then when she thinks of her new teacher, she's subconsciously thinking of positive qualities of that new teacher. So hopefully it will build a positive image of that teacher whenever she thinks of her.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful. I really would say to try the social story out. You can usually just use like some clip art, like if you have a picture of the old teacher and the new teacher, or the old class and the new class, and you can just post it into like a PowerPoint deck or into like a Word document and then just print it out. Or if they have like a tablet, you can just put it on the tablet as a digital file so they can have it with them wherever you go. You can also put it on your phone so that you have it in your pocket when you're dropping off. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But we found that that's been really helpful for our daughter. And she eventually got to the point where she didn't need the social story anymore. So I would definitely give that a go.
And hopefully you'll see a positive change. If not, let us know and we can keep giving you ideas.
Yeah, we'll try again. But we're happy to try it anyway. Sorry. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, because there was this question that was sent to me, and I thought it was a really good question. But it was basically about how somebody's autistic child was starting to realize they're at the young age, so probably close to your child's age, Kenyatta, around 8 or so. And they were at that age where they're going to school. They didn't know they were autistic because many parents don't tell their children. And they were starting to realize that they were different from everyone else. And so the question there was like, how do I approach this? My kid is kind of like starting to ask questions, or like starting to have low self-esteem because they're like, why am I not like everyone else? So I thought that that would be a really good question to answer here, if you would like to go
I mean,
ahead.
mine would just be kind of like a stab in the dark. I haven't really even thought of best approach. I mean, I would kind of sit down and explain like everyone is different, everyone has strengths, everyone has weaknesses, and just kind of go into that. Like, I mean, we both know that neither of us are normal or atypical. Um,
I'm
so,
definitely not normal.
so I feel like we could kind of build off of that, just kind of explaining like everyone has the strengths and differences, and just kind of go from there. But I haven't really put together a game plan. Granted, ours are a little bit younger, so we have a little while before that even pops up.
Yeah. And I would add to that, I'm the type of person that thinks that you should really tell your child about their diagnosis as soon as you feel like they are like intellectually capable of understanding it, even if it's like in a small way. Like I see here in the chat, Kenyatta, you said you've been telling him he's autistic since he was 4. Right. So like to me, I'm open to that idea so long as it's like age appropriate. So obviously when they're 4, you can't tell them all the complexities of what it means to be autistic, but it kind of prepares them to slowly start the introduction process. And I'm like a firm believer of that, particularly because of like how not having a diagnosis impacted me growing up. And because I got a very late diagnosis, so I grew up with all these like self-esteem issues because I didn't know about it. So for me personally, I'm all about telling them as young as possible, so long as they understand.
I guess you could also go into kind of the oversensitive, undersensitive components, and that might be a better way to explain if they are still young, kind of like the overview of autism. Because I mean, again, if you mention to a young child that they're autistic, I mean, even if you mention that to an adult, that doesn't really necessarily give them any feedback. But I think if you focus also on kind of individual components that they might be experiencing, they might be able to relate to it a little bit better.
Right, and there's other, like, stories that exist that you can kind of apply to autism in a different way. So, like, for example, the story of the tortoise and the hare. That story is not about autism and special needs, but you can kind of apply it because, for example, I have slow processing. So in that sense, you could use the whole metaphor of like slow processing being the tortoise and the hare being like really quick, and that everyone thinks that processing really quick is great and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's perseverance that gets you there. So it's like you can still take some fables and folklore and kind of turn it into a relevant story that's related to autism or whatever they specifically struggle with. And I see Kenyatta, you said he's around other autistic children all day because he goes to special needs private school. I
Okay.
think that that can have its pros and cons. I think the pros is that he's around peers that are similar, so he probably doesn't feel as out of place. That's my guess. Um, but I think that The only con to that for me would be, is he not been exposed to typical peers in the sense that, is he aware that he is different from his peers or that he has different struggles? Because then that conversation might be delayed, which, I mean, that's fine, but it's just like something to keep in mind.
And then if he, does have ADHD as well, since that is linked in with the autism, it might also be complicated trying to pull apart, like, the individual diagnosis because I feel like they kind of blend together a little bit. I'm not sure if that would be kind of a difficult conversation to say, like, this might be ADHD versus this might be autism because I feel like they might kind of overlap and be kind of intertwined a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that my youngest is going to be diagnosed with ADHD when she's old enough. So I have been thinking about how we're going to approach that conversation. I think it can be harder when he's got multiple things going on, but since ADHD and, like, intellectual disability kind of fall under the umbrella of autism frequently anyway, I think you're okay with just saying the autism part, and then later on you can say, "Hey, this is part of that. This is kind of like part of the autism," even though we know technically it's not, but it is so often a comorbidity that I don't think that it's a problem to kind of introduce that a little bit later once it starts really affecting him. And I see you said he got diagnosed with severe ADHD at 6. So that was fairly recent because he's
That's the
8,
last
so that's just
couple
like,
years or so.
yeah, so you might just want to introduce it in a way where you're not saying, you might not just say like, "Well, you're struggling with this because you have ADHD," if you feel like he doesn't understand that. You can just use euphemistically like, "Well, you're struggling with this because your brain works this way and it takes a little longer to do this. Sometimes your brain has a hard time focusing," things like that, in a way that he would understand what it means. Because when you speak in terms of, like, what something actually means, I think that helps your children understand what they can do about it. Whereas if you just say, "Well, honey, you have severe ADHD," a child probably doesn't know what to do with that, right?
But then also, I think if you approach it I mean, kind of to what you're saying, if you say, "Oh, you have ADHD," that almost seems like a conversation end, not really like opening the doorway to, "Oh, okay, you struggle with X, Y, and Z." If you kind of put like a label and that I mean, I feel like you would need to go into a conversation further and not just kind of focus on, "Oh, you have ADHD," and that's kind of it. Because and then at the end of the day, that might be kind of a reason for the behavior. So, like, I'm trying to think of an example. So, like, if you say, like, "Oh, you're misbehaving or you're struggling because you have ADHD," then I'm not sure if later that'll just be used as kind of like the reason for the misbehavior rather than trying to work towards improving that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it really depends on what the personality of the kid will end up being. But, look, my bottom line is you are the parent and you parent your child however you feel best. This is just like tips and advice from
from
our
our
experience.
experience,
And we do have ADHD, so we can understand and relate to that. But I ultimately believe that it's like the parent's job, not job, but it's the parent's right to parent their child in the way they see fit. So if you don't feel like what we're saying is helpful, that's totally fine. I just think like go with your gut as a parent. Like you know your child best, so go with your gut.
Yep, I agree. And it looks like, we have a greeting if we are ready for Christmas, and of course we are. We even have a
Hi Eileen, I see you.
hey, there we go.
Look at that. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. We're totally ready for Christmas. Now our kids, that's another story, which I think we should probably talk about Christmas at some point, right? It is a Christmas live stream.
Sure. So, can you explain to them what our Christmas tree looks like?
Yes. So this Christmas tree is not our Christmas tree. I wish. This is like a fantasy Christmas tree. So Christmas trees and autism and toddlers just don't mix well. So our Christmas tree started decorated. It is now
Top
complete.
third. Top third is going strong.
Yeah, the top third of our tree looks really good. We'll We'll just leave it there. It looks really good from the top third up.
Not a single ornament on the bottom 2/3.
Although the star on our tree is like sadly tilting over, so even the top third is not that great.
So I think last year we had a gate, like the baby gate that we put around it, and that did pretty well. This year we figured,
We were optimistic.
and then that quickly fell slowly as the ornaments disappeared.
Yeah, so lesson learned, our kids are still not ready for a Christmas tree. But we at least got the plastic ornaments, so even though they're destroyed and all over the place, I don't really care because they were from the dollar store. So I'm okay with that.
But I'm not sure. So when the ornaments fall down, I've been just like shoving them into the top third of the
Yeah.
tree. So it's extremely like packed because it's like most of our tree in like the top third portion.
I know, it's so funny.
So
All of our ornaments are shoved on the top, and then the bottom's just completely naked.
yeah, it looks absolutely
It's
terrible.
terrible. It looks like the Christmas tree just like got wasted or something.
But that's Christmas.
Yeah, but we did learn from last year, we learned how to space out Christmas because our kids had a really hard time with the holidays, specifically with like all the decorations going up, the changes, because let's face it, like Christmas brings on like new smells because you have like the baking that happens, the cooking from the meals. It
If
brings
you
on,
use a tree.
yes, that's true if you use a real
See,
tree.
I got one.
But
I
we
got
also
one.
use the little pine scent on our fake tree because yes, we're fake tree people. Um, but yeah, it brings on a bunch of different scents. It brings obviously a lot of different visual things because you've got all the Christmas lights everywhere. You've got the decorations. We've got our awesome little Mickey Mouse musical thing that you hate. We have this like it's
Yeah.
like from my childhood, so it's nostalgic for me, but it's like
Yeah.
this musical Mickey Mouse where the characters pop out of these houses and they sing Christmas carols, and Matt hates it.
It's I mean, I can see why like kids love it because it's like super like obnoxious and like
It's
like
cute.
and just like "Bow, bow, 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 bow,
Yeah,
bow,
he hates
bow."
it, and it only has like 6 songs on loop because this thing is from like the 1990s. But he absolutely hates it because he finds it annoying. But the kids actually love it. It's interesting though. Didn't they hate it the first year?
Well, yeah, because they hated it when we first put it up because of the like the sounds they weren't used to, but now
Mhm.
they like it, and yeah, sometimes it's painful, and yeah,
We kind of learned though, we kind of preconditioned them for it this year because it's Mickey Mouse themed, and when we first put it up, they had never heard of Mickey Mouse. But
that's
this
true.
time, this year, we got them into, like, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and all this stuff. So by the time it was Christmas, now they were already fans of Mickey Mouse. So this year, they were okay with it.
Yeah, it's just well, it's not really like them singing, it's like them making like little sounds though.
Yeah, but
Like they have Pluto trying to sing, and it's
it's cute because they try to copy it. And then Eileen, I see your comment there. Aren't there only 6 Christmas songs? You mean like in the world? I'm very
no,
confused.
The Mickey Mouse.
Oh, wait, are you familiar with this Mickey Mouse thing?
Oh my
I
gosh.
I'm lost. Sorry.
Is there
I'm not the
another soul who has the singing
I
Christmas
was
thing?
just gonna say I'm not the brightest tool. I, like, mixed up 2 sayings in my head, but that is a perfect example of what I mean.
But you're right, there are more than 6 Christmas songs in the world, there's probably like 7 or 8.
There's probably like 7.
Mariah Carey's
Oh my lord.
Christmas is
Yeah,
one.
let's not introduce them to Mariah Carey just yet.
Oh my gosh.
But what we did is we basically introduced the cartoon first, and when we introduced the cartoon first, it made it easier to then introduce the toy or the ornament that sings. So we've learned that exposing our children to things that are similar but like easier to digest makes it easier later down the road to expose them to something that might have been more challenging before. And then the other thing that we did is we decided to start spacing out gift giving. We did this last year and it was a huge win for us. The previous year, they had complete meltdowns. Like the oldest one had to go hide in her room. She needed sensory breaks. She couldn't handle all the noise of the wrapping paper, the people. There was only like one or two extra people in the house,
Right.
but she couldn't even handle that.
But even last year, so we had made some transitions last year, and we had much more success. Even them unwrapping gifts, it was very quiet because we kind of set it up where they're not just tearing everything. It's like very slowly and quietly unwrapping a gift. So, I mean, it seemed like it was a lot better. They like playing with the wrapping paper, but you didn't have the loud noise of everything being torn up.
Yeah, so that's basically what we started doing differently, and we started pacing the gifts that we would give them. So first, we don't give a ton of gifts. We only give a couple of gifts, just not to overwhelm them, and then we've decided to space out the gifts. So we would basically give them, like, 1 or 2 gifts, like, every hour, which for some people, that's annoying, but for us, I actually like it because it makes Christmas last, like, all day. And then it allows your child to enjoy the gift for a little bit until they get to the next one. But it helped with them with that sense of, like, overwhelm of too much going on because they really didn't like, the wrapping paper sound and all that. So, I think that that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, plus it allows them we give them, like, the one gift for, like, the hour, for example, and then they want to explore whatever that gift is. So, like, last year, we had gotten them some puzzles. So, as soon as they unwrapped it, they immediately wanted to work on it. So, we were putting together the puzzles with them, and they were getting a chance to play with it slowly versus the year before that where they opened or she opened pretty much most of her gifts within half an hour.
Yeah.
And then there was so much for her to focus on.
It
It
was
was just
just
a
a
meltdown,
meltdown,
and then we had to
kinda
kind of slowly pull back
back
as far as introducing what she could play with. So I think that was a better approach last year, and we're going to try it again this year, and hope that we go 2 for 2 and have a positive and great Christmas.
And I do feel like that's something that is super applicable to ADHD too. Like, the slowly doing the gifts, I think that's, like, perfect for ADHD because that whole not being able to attend to every toy at once or every gift at once, and then kind of, like, losing interest in one because you have so many options. I think, like, I struggle with, like, choice overload all the time, so I feel like for little kids, especially ones with autism, ADHD, other disabilities, it can be overwhelming when you have so many gifts at once. So I feel like that helps with, like, the visual noise and also that, like, choice anxiety that they might get. It kind of helps them reduce the work that they have to do so that they can enjoy their gift more. That's just, like, my opinion, though.
And then the other component of Christmas is for, like, food.
Oh my
So,
goodness, yeah.
yeah.
First, I want to get to Eileen's comment. So she was saying, "No, like, Christmas song, just different versions."
So you were right.
What's that? Is that what that means?
Well, like, so she's saying, like, as far I think that there's, like, 6 Christmas songs, and then everyone has, like, a version off of that original song.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would drive me crazy. Like, a million versions of the same song. But, that is what Christmas music has kind of become nowadays. It is, like, a ton of versions of the same song. So, let's just not do the Mariah Carey versions.
But, I heard that that was not the most popular Christmas song.
There's a new most popular song?
Well, apparently they were saying, White Christmas with, is it,
Really?
yeah, Crosby? Yeah.
That's such a boring song.
I actually like it. From the movie White Christmas, going
I
back
don't
to
think
the
I've actually seen that.
1950s.
So, like, I'm Puerto Rican, so my background in Christmas music is very different from what I guess you would consider, like, standard Christmas music.
That's true.
Fun fact, Feliz Navidad was actually written by a Puerto Rican, and the person who wrote it actually lived in, like, the same, like, neighborhood city area as my dad. But, yeah, that was just a random fact that popped into my head because ADHD does that.
I like the one with the donkey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe one of these days I'll throw in some Puerto Rican Christmas music on a podcast or something just for fun. But back to whatever I was talking about.
We're talking about food, and
Food. That's
well,
right.
well, it reminded me of like Thanksgiving. And do you remember what our girls ate for like their Thanksgiving meal?
Wasn't it like bread rolls or something?
Well, it was multi. So first they had bacon.
Turkey bacon. That counts.
Right.
It's turkey.
Okay. Then they had pizza. And
It wasn't turkey pizza.
No, it was cheese. And I think they tried a bread roll, but even that I think was too foreign for them, and they didn't eat the bread rolls. So
bacon and pizza for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
bacon and
Are we gonna
pizza
have
for Thanksgiving. Are we going to have a
Christmas? What are your
repeat
thoughts?
for Christmas? What are your thoughts?
Well, if they can't do ham,
If they
then
can't do
regular
ham,
bacon would count,
then
right?
regular bacon would count, right?
Okay, well,
Well,
It's
turkey
in the
bacon.
same
Turkey
family.
In the same family.
well,
turkey bacon is from the turkey.
I will be
I will be
happy if they just
if they
sit at
just
the
sit
dinner
at the
table
dinner
with us,
table with
because
us.
to me that's a
To me,
win.
that's a win.
Because it's
Because
hard
it's
enough
hard
getting
enough
them
getting
at
them
the
at the
dinner
dinner
table.
table.
That's true.
But let's see. We have already gone like 36 minutes, so I will start wrapping this up. If there's any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat. We'll start answering some of those. If there's any questions that, actually, I'll take a look on Facebook too, because I don't think I've checked that yet. But go ahead and feel free to submit any questions and we'll go through them. I did have a couple of questions that I saw in advance. So I will answer some of those as well. And then I'm going to do the wheel of names for the drawing. So Matt, if you'd like, go through the list of people who commented and just kind of like save their names off to the side, maybe shoot them to me in Messenger or something, or in the comments,
Okay,
in the private chat.
All right.
And then I'll enter y'all into the drawing for the sensory box. But if you're interested in that, please stay in the chat because I will need to reach out to you for your address. And then let's see. Cool. So again, let me just pop up this little banner. Just wanted to bring this up real quick. If you guys are fans of our podcast, again, we're so excited because we hit 10,000 downloads. Like, that is such a huge deal. So I'm so grateful for all of you. Please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us get more sponsors so that we can gift more kids. I don't know if Spotify does reviews, but if it does, feel free to leave one there.
Or like us on Facebook.
Yes, like us and follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. This is at Autism Wish. We are also on Twitter at Autism Wish. We are just trying to get as much of a following because the sponsors also look at how many followers we have. And that's a big factor into whether or not they're willing to sponsor us. So if you just like to support us in a really free and easy way, just follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Autism Wish and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and that would go a really long way. If you're feeling generous, we're always open for donations as well. So you can just go to autismwish.org/donate. And that's another way to help us out.
You're welcome to also give us a heart. A laughy face is also acceptable, but not sure how we feel about angry faces.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of good emojis. So keep up the emojis. We're totally cool with those. Okay, so let me go ahead and start answering some questions. Let's see. So one of the questions that I had, it was basically I'm losing the word, but in relation to how to approach public settings where somebody says your child doesn't look autistic, for example. I've seen lots of people ask about, like, what do I do when I'm in a public situation and another kid's parent starts kind of questioning my child because they're behaving in a atypical way? And sometimes those parents will pull their kid away from your kid, or they might just be like, "Oh, that kid seems like they're spoiled," or something like that. "They're a naughty kid. I don't want you playing with them." And then they might make a comment and you are like, "Hey, my kid's autistic, like, leave him alone." And then their reaction is like, "Well, they don't look autistic to me." I unfortunately have seen that that is something that happens fairly frequently, and my response to that is always like, my motto is "Kill 'em with kindness." And usually what I mean by that is I don't try to get on the offensive. I usually try to get more on not even the defensive, but the neutral.
Referee.
Is that what a referee does? I don't watch sports. But basically what I mean by that is if you are sensing a bad vibe from someone or judgment or something like that, I would use that as a teaching moment and a teaching opportunity rather than I mean, I know it's upsetting, but I just wouldn't take it personal because the way I see it is that person is simply not educated in autism. Like they probably don't know much about it. It really is not that common. So I don't really blame people for jumping to the conclusion of this child's behaving this way, therefore they must be like a really bratty kid or X, Y, and Z. I mean, we know it's not true, but I think that gently educating them and just being like, well, my kid struggles with X, Y, and Z. They have some delays in this area. When they do this or say this, they're not trying to like scare your kid. It's just their way of expressing themselves. They have issues with like sensory or whatever is happening at that time. And I would kind of do it in a more educational way rather than a kind of like offensive mama bear protective mode. Granted, if some kid pushed your kid down and is bullying them, that's something else entirely. But if it's just like a passive judgment that they're just kind of looking at you weird or judging your child or something like that, I personally like to just take that as like a teaching opportunity. So that's just me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would definitely focus on kind of the different characteristics that they struggle with. So as far as sensory or any other component that you've noticed. So like our oldest daughter struggles with spatial awareness or um, gosh, what are some of the other things she struggles with? I'm mostly thinking at like the park. Um, she likes to do a lot of echolalia. So if she hears something that another child will say, she'll repeat it. So sometimes she might get a strange look from a kid at the park who isn't used to a random little kid repeating exactly what they're saying. So I try to focus on kind of the individual elements versus just kind of like dropping the bomb of, oh, she's autistic. Because then that more so just like puts I don't want to say like a burden on that person for lack of knowledge, but it kind of does because in 5 seconds, that doesn't tell them what they need to know. It just drops a bomb and then you basically leave. So I think by focusing on the individual components that anyone is able to hopefully sympathize with or just understand in general, you're probably more likely to be successful in explaining the situation and kind of moving forward from there.
Yeah. And I think like the other thing that I've noticed is that sometimes they don't really understand when it's like a misbehavior versus just like autism stimming, for example. Like it could just be that they are doing a vocal stim. And sometimes the vocal stim can be like what you mentioned with like echolalia or something like that. And they might just be repeating what another child is saying. And sometimes that's misinterpreted as like your child is being mean to another kid because they're copying everything they say. Or they might be like, hey, your kid is making fun of my kid. Your kid is targeting my kid because they just keep mimicking everything they say. And it's not funny.
Right, and I've seen that too. So she will repeat what the other kid has said that she heard, but then sometimes she'll also laugh on top of it. So without any context,
Yeah.
it basically just sounds like our little 3-year-old is mocking whoever she just heard and is laughing at what they said. So I can see sometimes it getting into kind of a dicey situation to say the least. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just something that we kind of keep an eye on.
It's definitely something that we notice because she does tend to laugh after she copies someone with the echolalia, but it's because to her it's enjoyable to repeat what people are saying. It's not that she's mocking them, it's just that she likes to hear it over again and it brings her joy. So that is why she is laughing. But to the average person who doesn't know what echolalia is, they just think she's repeating what they're saying and then laughing at them for it. So right now she's only 3, so, like, she's getting away with it because nobody's super offended by a toddler.
And we're right there with her too, so, like, the kids just kind of run off and do their own thing, but I guess when she's a little bit older, if we're not right there with her at the park, it might pose
that's
other
probably gonna be an
complications.
issue as she gets older, so that's
Right.
something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. But I totally get that. And then let's see. So Kenyana says, my son does the delayed echolalia, plus he has to wear headphones and he gets lots of stares. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you do in those situations? Is it a situation where they're staring and then they're kind of staring in disgust or something like that? Or is it like curiosity? Do you feel like stressed when it happens? Like, do you feel like a negative vibe? Because I feel like depending on the situation and what you're feeling and what's going on, my reaction would be different. So, like, I don't really mind stares. If I, like, catch it, I'll smile, and then if the person smiles back, then I feel like that neutralizes it. So, like, okay, that was curiosity, they were just trying to figure it out. But if I smile and then they look away really quick or they kind of, like, give me a negative look, then I feel like, okay, this is a different situation. And then just depending on what that outcome is, it's, like, how I would approach it, basically. Yeah, I totally can relate to that, and unfortunately, the other thing about that is as our kids grow, we're gonna have to teach them the skills to be able to handle those situations on their own. Even if they have, like, intellectual delays and things like that, we still have to try to the best of their ability to give them some of these tools, and I feel like that's the hard part. So I see that you said that you just stare back and your son doesn't care. Some are out of curiosity and others frown. Yeah, okay, I can understand that because he's throwing, like he's having, like, a meltdown, it seems like, when it happens. Oh, man.
And
Public stares during meltdowns.
yeah, I stop even, like, focusing on that. I mean, I'm just thinking of, like, us and, like, Barnes& and Noble, for example, and her wanting us to get Pete the cat stuffed animal that was extremely overpriced.
Yeah.
And then having a meltdown because we were trying to avoid that. Um, but I stopped basically trying to pay attention to anyone else around me. I just kind of focus on her and getting her to kind of a safe place or a place that's quiet where I can kind of work with her and get her to kind of a safe and calm state of mind. So, like, I'll kind of pick her up and just kind of walk straight out the doors, and I'm sure everyone's looking at me, but I'm not going to see them again, so it's easy enough at the same time, and we can just move on with our day.
Yeah, I actually had an incident happen was that yesterday?
Oh, yeah, at the
Yes.
school. That's right.
So I was picking my kids up from their autism therapy school, and I am so used to the meltdowns happening with, like, the transitions, like, in and out of the car seats because that's a hard transition point for us. I'm so used to it, and let me know if you guys can relate to this, that you're just, like, so used to the routine of having to deal or manage, like, the meltdowns that it doesn't, like, super phase you anymore, it's just, like, part of your day. So, because I was so used to it, I didn't even think twice, like, "Okay, my kid's melting down, I'm gonna help her transition, I'm gonna put her in her car seat, I'm gonna put music," and, like, just do the whole spiel for helping calm her down. And so this woman apparently was watching me the whole time, and I totally didn't notice because I was, like, in the zone, right? Like, you're just focused on your kid. I just wanna get her in and get her situated. I didn't see anything else. And so, like, I finally get her in and her sister because 'cause I've got both of the toddlers, and this woman comes up and, like, rolls down her window in her car, and she was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, excuse me," and I suddenly, like, snapped, and I was like, "Oh, wait, I'm in public." Like, I totally forgot I was in public, but that moment I just stopped and I was like, "Oh, yeah, there's people here." And so I turned around and I was kind of like, "Oh gosh, like, what's gonna happen?" And she turned into me with, like, this sweet smile. She was like, I just want you to know you're a good mom and you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And I was like so touched by that. That was so sweet. And it just made me think like, as parents of autistic children or parents of like special needs children, I think it's particularly important for us that when we do see something out in public, like if we see another parent struggling, whether it's like a special needs child or not, I feel like we really should go out of our way to kind of compliment the other moms. And I feel like, or other dads, I'm not going to leave Matt out, sorry.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something that we should kind of start doing more. And I feel like that's going to be a New Year's resolution for me now. I want to kind of start going out of my way and trying to give parents some encouragement when they're in public and having to deal with a kid who's struggling. Because I think that it really does better prepare you for your child. Like it gave me a little boost, it gave me a little bit of energy. And then I was like more at peace with my kids, right? So I think that that's just like a little story that inspired a New Year's resolution for me. So I hope that that's just something for you guys to think about as well.
I think that's a good approach. I mean, because it took all of 5 seconds for that woman to compliment you, and I mean, that happened yesterday, and I mean, it meant enough that you are bringing it up now, so I mean, it stayed with you, so 5 seconds for a quick compliment can stay with someone for much longer than the 5 seconds.
Yeah. And Kenyana, I totally feel you. I see your comment about how you can't pick up your kid because he's 4'10" and weighs 97 pounds. Yeah, that can be difficult. I'm 4'11".
I was just
so
gonna ask.
I was about to say he's about my height. Yeah, I can see that being a challenge. I couldn't do that either. So I can see how that can be
Right,
difficult.
because anytime that Leah is upset, I can't pick
He
her
can't
up
pick
and
me up.
carry her to
But
the
I'm
car.
also not 97 pounds.
But I guess if there's a way to try and calm him down where he is having a meltdown, that might be an approach. I try and use motivation, focusing on kind of the next activity or something that we're going to use. So if we're at the park and our oldest daughter's having a meltdown because she doesn't want to leave the park, I'll try and focus on the next activity that we're going to do. Oh, we're going to do art time when we get home, or oh, we're going to go get lunch. I think we're going to get pizza, or whatever else we have planned for the day. We try to really talk it up to try and get some type of motivation to kind of transition out of that difficult time into kind of a better state of mind. So I know that's not a perfect solution, but that's kind of what we've been using for the time being until we can get something else moving.
So it looks like we are hitting here 53 minutes. So we're going to wrap this up because this has gone pretty long. And if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and shoot them in the chat now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the wheel spin where I'm going to enter the names of the people who've submitted questions into this spin. Then I'm going to spin the wheel and announce the winner. And then I'm going to contact that person directly on Facebook Messenger. So as soon as I do that, I will be basically just asking for your mailing address so I can ship you out the sensory box for your kid. Hopefully it's there on time for Christmas. I'm not sure. But let's see. I don't see any other questions. So I'll just go ahead and spin the wheel and we'll find out who it is. You're going to have to like hum or something because it's spinning. So it's not like awkward silence. Okay.
I can be like a vacuum
That's probably
cleaner.
more annoying. Okay, so we've got a winner. And the winner is Eileen. Eileen, congratulations. There is like a confetti setting on here, but I don't know how to do it. So let's just pretend. Whoosh. So Eileen, I will connect with you after this and get your mailing address. If you can just send it to me either in private message or wherever you're comfortable with. I just need that like within the next hour or so. And then I will ship out the sensory box for your kiddo and hopefully it'll get there on time for Christmas. We'll see. But that's really all we have got here. So Eileen, I'm just going to show your little chat here. Yay! Congratulations. There's Eileen. But yeah, that's it. That's all we have for you guys. Matt, do you have anything to add before I wrap up?
Nope. just saying Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I hope you and your family and loved ones have a great holiday season.
Yes, and please do not forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Autism Wish. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Just show your support in any way possible because we've got like big things planned. So very excited. And again, thanks so much for joining us and tuning into our video broadcast. I don't know what you call this, but we're going to go head out, and I hope you all have a good night. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful, and we will see you in the new year.
2022.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas. Have a good new year.
Year.
Bye.